As we mentioned at the top of the broadcast this morning, we want to pay particularly close attention to these three East Tennessee representatives because they will not be returning in January. All three of them lost in the August 1st election. And for a lot of people who watched these races unfold, it was a surprise. Susan, let's go to you first. They're all Republicans. What happened, and was it a surprise?
Yes, I think it was a surprise. Now, the Nicely seat, that was the state Senate seat. Frank's been there a while. And that one, I had been told was going to be really, really close, and they really thought Frank was going to lose. It still surprised me. And the incumbent has a huge advantage. But there was, as we said earlier, there's a lot of money spent to try to beat Frank. And so that one, I think, surprised a lot of people. The Brian Ritchie race in Maryville.
He was trying to become a state senator. He was trying to become a
state senator. Art Swan had retired. And that didn't surprise me a whole lot. He, as we say in East Tennessee, he ain't from around here. And that, I think, hurt him. And then I think the Reagan race, you know.
And remember, that's, as we tape, it's not over.
No, he's still contesting it, saying that. And Don, I want to go to you because this is a bona fides question for our viewers who are not familiar with this. Let's talk about what it means to be a bona fide Republican or a bona fide Democrat.
So we have a statute that requires that a voter in a primary be a bona fide voter, bona fide member of that primary, without any party. Excuse me, without any meaningful definition of what bona fide means. And we do not have party registration in this state.
That makes it particularly hard because for a lot of people who don't realize it, you don't register by party in Tennessee. You'll hear a lot of people say, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat.
They say I'm a registered Republican.
They're not.
No such thing. It's just like we don't register guns. Well, we don't register political affiliation either. You show up at the poll and you tell them which ballot you want. And, you know, there's a long history in America of people changing parties. And there are people changing back and forth.
Ronald Reagan, Donald Trump.
Sure, right? And so those things said, John Reagan, this isn't going to go very far. This is a really problematic statute for our state. It's vague. Should anybody challenge it? Well, I still question, you know, hardcore conservative courts like we now generally have one in Tennessee, not quite as bad as the U.S. Supreme Court, what they might do with it, but we need clarity from our legislature and what this means. And frankly, I'm not opposed to party registration, and you know, but where you can change it, you know, up to maybe 15 days out from the election, 10 days out, I'm not terribly opposed to that. But I also don't think, you know, I think the system works pretty well, and you go vote in what primary you want. I know Susan has probably hadn't voted in a Democratic primary since Moses came off the mountain.
Never.
And I have, you know, never voted in a Republican primary, but I have encouraged some of my friends when there's, quote, more play on that side who are independents. And I'm like, well, you know, depending on where your values are, who your candidates are, you know, you might want to think about voting in a Republican because here are what these people stand for, and they do that.
Susan, let me ask you, Representative Reagan says he has 1,000 people who he is challenging, saying they weren't legitimate Republicans, which is a lot in that race. Do you think he has a shot?
I don't. The state, how we resolve this is the state, Republican State Party Executive Committee sits as the primary board, according to law. They are scheduled to meet next Saturday, September 7th. And if there is a quorum, there has to be, and they cannot meet via Zoom or Teams. They have to meet in person. That's a state law as well.
Conflicting with the UT football game.
It's football Saturday, whether it's UT or any Vanderbilt. And so if they get a quorum, then they will vote on that. They'll have to have 32 actually, because there are a couple of vacancies. But my sense is, and I've talked to some of the SEC members, my sense is that they probably will not overturn the election because there was Rick Scarborough won by 258 votes. I don't know how John Reagan would ever prove that that 200 and something of that number voted for Rick Scarborough that were Democrats. I mean, maybe they voted for John Reagan if they were
He's
Democrats.
almost going to have to get affidavits from 259
Right.
people that say, I literally went over simply to bullet
Beat
vote
you.
against
Yeah,
Reagan,
right.
period, I'm a Democrat.
And I don't think that'll
he's not going to, no, I don't think, I'll be shocked if he could find that.
And we will see it resolved by the board.
Yes, it
Yeah.
should be resolved. Now, if they don't have a quorum, I think what happens is the election would stand as is. So obviously the party will try to get a quorum there, but it's football Saturday. And they have to go to Nashville or Mount Juliet, I think they're going to meet down there, and have 32 members there and vote. But I think the likelihood of it being overturned is very, very.
I'm still cackling over Frank Nicely becoming a Democrat or a liberal.
A liberal.
A liberal. So
Only a couple minutes left, but let's look more broadly at the legislative session. We're still a long way out from that, but do you agree with Representative McKenzie and some of the issues that we will see brought to the table this year?
I think those issues are going to be brought. Clearly, vouchers are going to be the focal point from the governor that's going to get a lot of play and a lot of attention and bounce around in committees and talk. I think he's right. I don't think it passes again. I think it reflects very poorly on Governor Lee and his legacy as governor. I'm fearful that we won't see a lot of traction or movement on gun control and on women's reproductive rights. We might see some tiny incremental things, I hope, but I think it's going to be a little more of the same. And really, he was right about the budget. We've got some economic issues coming up, and we're going to have to figure out, being a low-tax state, no-tax state, how are we going to fund the important things that we're obligated to fund?
Susan, only about a minute left, but you were nodding your head about the tightness of the budget, and I just want to get your thoughts before we leave on how Governor Lee, if you were advising him to recruit these rural Republicans to vote for anything that's voucher related.
Well, he won a couple of races where they put money in against the incumbents, and he lost a couple of races. So I think you're going to see some pretty bitter people that had that money spent against them. And in some cases, like Jesse Seal that beat Frank Nicely.
We're not sure he's really for vouchers.
Yeah, I've had a conversation with him. His district is not pro-voucher. So I think you're not going to see a voucher program. Certainly not a universal voucher program.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. We appreciate you watching on this Sunday morning. Don and Susan, thanks to you. And we will see you next week right here on Inside Tennessee.